It was June 12, 2005, a day that started like any other. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and little Emma Thompson, just 7 years old, was on her way home from school. Her excitement filled the air as she skipped along the sidewalk, looking forward to a weekend filled with fun and adventure. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching true crime story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chilling case. If you're as captivated by unsolved mysteries as we are, join our CrimeCortex community, where we uncover the truth behind the headlines. And don't forget to leave your thoughts or theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Now let's dive in. Her mother greeted her with a warm hug at the door, and Emma, with a sparkle in her eyes, asked if she could go play in the park just down the street. Like any loving parent, her mother said yes, trusting that Emma, a smart and responsible girl, would stay safe. Emma had always been known for her cheerful spirit. The park was her sanctuary, her favorite place to escape into her imagination. But no one knew that this day would be the last time anyone would see Emma Thompson, the little girl who loved to play in the sun. As the sun began to set, her mother called out to her, asking her to come home for dinner. But when she stepped outside to call Emma, the world as she knew it came crashing down. Emma was nowhere to be found. The neighborhood was quiet. Too quiet. It felt wrong. Something was off. At first, her mother thought she might just be hiding somewhere, playing with her friends or lost in her own world. But as the minutes ticked by, the reality sank in. Emma wasn't there. Emma wasn't anywhere. Her heart raced as she checked the usual spots. No sign of Emma. Panic set in. She ran inside to grab her phone and dialed 911. In a world where children wandered off and returned hours later, her gut told her something different was happening. Something far darker. The clock was ticking and the search began almost immediately. Neighbors rushed out of their homes, knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen Emma. Word spread like wildfire, and soon, a crowd had gathered in the quiet neighborhood. The police were called and law enforcement arrived with flashing sirens. A search party was organized and the hunt for Emma Thompson was underway. As darkness fell, the searchers worked tirelessly under the moonlight. The park, the nearby woods, and every inch of the surrounding area were scoured with K-9 units, volunteers, and officers. The police reviewed security footage, hoping for a lead. But each hour that passed without finding Emma felt like a lifetime. But as the night wore on, the situation grew more and more alarming. There was no sign of Emma, no clues, no footprints leading anywhere. Not even a trace of the little girl who had been so full of life just hours earlier. Her family and the entire community were left in a state of shock, hoping for a miracle. But deep down they feared the worst. The search continued for days, with every lead being followed, only to turn up empty. The investigation was growing more complex. Was Emma really just lost, or was there something darker at play? As the hours passed and Emma remained missing, the small suburban town began to change. What started as a routine evening quickly transformed into a crisis. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers from nearby towns rushed to the scene. The community's heart beat as one, united in their search for a little girl who was now the face of an unfolding mystery. The first responders arrived shortly after the call was made, their urgency mirroring the rising fear in the air. The police were on the ground, securing the area, while volunteers began scouring every corner of the neighborhood. The park, the woods, the alleys, no place was left unchecked. It wasn't just law enforcement now, it was a town on high alert, fueled by the fear that someone knew where Emma was, but they were just too late to act. By nightfall, the quiet town that had once felt so safe now felt foreign. The lights flickered on in homes where families usually gathered for dinner, now vacant, with everyone out searching. A few were even shining flashlights into the underbrush of the nearby woods, hoping to find a sign, any sign of Emma. But despite the tireless effort, there was nothing. No one had seen anything, and worse, no one had heard anything unusual. It was as if Emma had vanished into thin air, and with every passing minute, the realization set in. This was no ordinary disappearance. What did it mean when a child could disappear without a trace in broad daylight? Emma had been in plain sight, walking to the park, laughing with friends. How could she vanish so suddenly? The deeper the community looked, the more questions they had. No footprints, no signs of struggle, no one who remembered seeing anything out of the ordinary. Her mother's frantic calls for help were now mixed with those of neighbors offering to assist in the search. The phone lines were overwhelmed with offers of help and tips. Every person in the town was now connected by the unknown. Could they find her before it was too late? Or was something far worse at play? As the first night passed, the police made it clear, Emma's disappearance was now a priority for law enforcement. The local authorities were joined by the county sheriff's department, and soon, they began to bring in specialized teams to assist in the search. K-9 units were brought in to track any possible scent, while helicopters flew overhead, scanning the area for any sign of movement. By day 2, the search had intensified. The neighborhood was now crawling with law enforcement. Detectives and officers scoured every inch of land. Meanwhile, a team of investigators started combing through every bit of information they could find. Phone records, video footage from security cameras around the neighborhood, and witness statements from anyone who might have seen something unusual. It was becoming apparent that this wasn't an accidental disappearance. Emma hadn't just wandered off. She wasn't playing at the park and got lost. No, this was deliberate. The question was, who could have done this to her? The detectives reached out to residents for any potential information. They were starting from scratch, but one thing was clear. There had to be a witness, someone who knew something but hadn't come forward. With each passing hour, the police looked deeper into the possibility of foul play. It was no longer just a child missing from the park, it was a crime. And every day that passed without a clue made it harder to believe she was still alive. By the end of the 3rd day, the case had gained national attention. News outlets began reporting on Emma's disappearance, covering the growing tension and the mounting fears. Emma's face was now plastered across TV screens, with news anchors urging viewers to keep an eye out for any signs of the missing girl. As the search continued, the entire nation held its breath. Emma's disappearance was now more than just a local mystery. People across the country were glued to their TV screens, hoping for any update. It was as if the whole country had collectively embraced the search. Everywhere you went, people were asking the same question. Where is Emma Thompson? It wasn't just the small town now. It was the entire nation. Everyone was watching, waiting for the next clue. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, but so was the fear. Emma was now a symbol of innocence lost, and every new update only made the story more heartbreaking. As the days turned into a week, the desperation grew. The police continued to search, but each day that passed without finding Emma made it feel more unlikely that she would be found alive. The nation was hoping for a miracle, but miracles were growing harder to come by. In the media, public speculation started to ramp up. What if Emma hadn't been abducted? What if there was another explanation? But the longer the search dragged on, the more it seemed like something sinister was involved. Was there a monster hiding in plain sight? Was someone in their midst the one who had taken Emma? The question lingered in the air, unanswered. Where was Emma? And why did it feel like no one was telling the truth? It wasn't until the 4th day that a break finally came, one single, anonymous tip that would change everything. The voice on the other end of the phone was shaky but clear enough. I saw a car parked near the park the day Emma disappeared. It was unusual. Didn't belong there. It stood out. At first, the tip seemed small, just a car parked in an area that had already been searched. But in the context of everything that had happened, it felt significant. A lead was a lead, no matter how small. The car in question was traced back to a local man named James Klein. A quiet figure in the neighborhood, Klein had lived in the area for years. But despite his long-time presence, he hadn't been under suspicion, until now. The tipster's description of the car was eerily accurate, and after further investigation, police discovered that Klein had been seen near the park the day Emma went missing. His presence, once seemingly benign, began to take on a more unsettling meaning. What did he know? Why was he there? What was his connection to Emma? As detectives dug deeper into James Klein's life, they uncovered a series of unsettling details. On the surface, he appeared to be just another quiet man in the neighborhood. He had no criminal record, no history of violent behavior, and outwardly he was well liked by those around him. But the deeper they dug, the more they began to realize that Klein wasn't who he appeared to be. Inside his house, detectives discovered disturbing evidence. Hidden photos, articles, and a collection of materials that seemed to focus on children. Among the items, they found several photographs of Emma taken from a distance, many of them showing her near the park where she had disappeared. The evidence was damning. Klein had been watching Emma. He knew her routine, her family, and most frighteningly, he had been planning something for weeks. But what shocked investigators the most was the discovery of a carefully hidden journal, filled with disturbing entries. Klein had been fixated on Emma. His journal was filled with detailed notes about her behavior, her interactions, and even her movements. It was clear, Emma had been more than just a passing interest. To Klein, she was an obsession. As the pieces fell into place, the horrifying truth became undeniable. Klein had been stalking Emma for weeks before her disappearance. But what happened next was even darker. At this point, investigators had enough evidence to confront Klein. When faced with the overwhelming evidence, he finally cracked. What followed was a confession that would send shockwaves through the entire community. James Klein admitted to abducting Emma. He had been watching her for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to act. On the day she disappeared, he saw his chance. He lured Emma away from the park and took her to a secluded location, where he held her captive. Klein explained that at first he hadn't intended to harm her. He had just wanted to keep her with him, hidden from the world. But as days passed, his obsession grew darker. Ultimately, Emma's fate was sealed. Klein had killed her to cover his tracks, afraid that she would speak out and expose him. He thought he could get away with it. The discovery of Emma's body came just days after Klein's confession. Hidden in a remote area, deep within a patch of woods that had already been searched, Emma's body was found. She had been closer to home than anyone could have ever imagined. Klein's secret had been hidden in plain sight all along. The nation was left in a collective state of shock and grief. Emma's tragic fate not only shattered the hearts of her family but also shook an entire community. Her disappearance had been a cruel nightmare, and the dark truth that followed left everyone reeling. Emma's mother, especially, was left grappling with a sorrow that no one could understand. Her mother, who had held on to hope for days, now had to confront the devastating reality. Her little girl was never coming home. The pain of losing a child, a vibrant young girl with so much potential, was unimaginable. The town that had once been peaceful was now forever marked by tragedy. People who once shared smiles and greetings now stood in silence, bonded by a shared grief they never anticipated. The funeral was a somber occasion, not just for Emma's family but for everyone who had been touched by her story. The whole town came together to pay their respects, and the outpouring of love and support for her family was overwhelming. But even with all the sympathy in the world, there would be no way to erase the pain or replace what had been lost. Emma's death became a catalyst for change. Out of the tragedy came a wave of action aimed at preventing something like this from ever happening again. Nationwide, child safety laws were reevaluated. Programs were implemented to educate communities on spotting warning signs of predatory behavior. And, most importantly, law enforcement agencies across the country came together to improve the systems that could protect vulnerable children. Emma's case also prompted an increase in resources for tracking and monitoring offenders, making it harder for predators to slip through the cracks. It wasn't just Emma's family who had been broken by this tragedy, it was an entire nation that had to look inward and address the gaps in the system that had allowed such a tragedy to occur. The loss of one innocent life led to changes that saved others. But that didn't make Emma's loss any less painful. Her family was left to navigate their grief, forever changed by the nightmare they had endured. Her mother spoke publicly, urging parents to be more vigilant, to trust their instincts, and to never stop fighting for the safety of their children. Emma Thompson's life was taken far too soon, but her story is one that resonates with us all. It serves as a painful reminder that sometimes danger hides in plain sight. Emma's family, her community, and even the nation will forever remember the vibrant, innocent child who never had the chance to grow up. As we reflect on this heart-wrenching story, it's important to remember that safety is something we all share responsibility for. Children are precious and we must all do our part to protect them. If you found Emma's story eye-opening and want to stay informed about important true crime investigations, be sure to like this video and subscribe to CrimeCortex. Share this video to raise awareness about child safety, and leave your thoughts or theories in the comments below. We want to hear your voice in the conversation. Thank you for watching, and remember, stay vigilant, stay aware, and never stop seeking the truth.